So go back to 31. You're 31. You're my age.
Yep.
What are the 3 things you do with your money based on the information in this book? You talk a lot about asset allocation, the fees, understanding where you're putting your money, and understanding finding a fiduciary, right?
Yes, yes.
You talk a lot about that, but what would you do if you're making...
Knowing what I know today?
Yeah, go back, you're 31 years old, what would you be doing?
Well,
three things you do first.
Well, you have a good income, so we're talking about you.
Yeah,
right?
sure.
Okay.
Say you're making 6 to 7 figures.
Great, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
So what I would do in that range is I would take and I would model one of the best masters. If it was me, one of the people, asset allocation, so people are clear, is the one thing that I met with David Swenson. He took $1 billion, turned it into $24 billion in 2 decades, in 20 years. Just mind-boggling. $1 billion a year, right? Just think about that level of doubling. It's just mind-boggling. And I asked him, I said, what are the dials? What are the only dials we can touch? And he said, Tony, to increase your return, there's only 2 things you can do. He said, you can make better selections of stocks. He said, you can have better timing. He said, and you can have better asset allocation. He said, the first 2 will never happen because the first 2 cost you money. Got to hire somebody, everybody's wrong on the timing. He said, asset allocation, which simply means dividing your money into different buckets. Some of those buckets are secure so that even though you think you're going to be a genius, you're going to make money no matter what, that money goes slower, but it'll always be there and it'll give you freedom for the rest of your life. There's a growth bucket, which is also a risk bucket. We forget that.
Yeah.
Because one of the things Ray Dalio taught me, he said, Tony, everybody invests in what they think they know. If you grew up with real estate, you're not a genius, but you made money in real estate because anybody can when real estate's going up.
Yeah.
You think you're a genius. You think you know stocks. Oh, you're a genius, in 1999, right?
Sure.
You're a genius in 2010 when things started to grow a bit. He said, whatever you invest in your lifetime, that area is going to drop 50 to 70%. There's 0 exception. He can show you mathematically and he can show you historically. Wow. So he said, you have to diversify even though you don't want to. And you have to divide these monies up. So every one of them taught me different asset allocations. But the one that I think is the most valuable for anybody to really take advantage of is Ray Dalio's, because Ray Dalio's figured out, why is it in 2008, if your stockbroker, your financial planner said, we're going to protect you. We're going to put you half in stocks and half in bonds. Why did they both go down? You weren't protected at all. Same thing happened in 2000. And he figured something out. When you think you're in a balanced portfolio, you're not balanced. And the reason is stocks are 3 times more volatile than you'll find in bonds. What does that mean? It means when you think you're 50-50, you're 50-50 with your money, but you're not 50-50 with your risk. You're 95% at risk and 5% on the good side. That's why everybody loses. So he figured a formula because he said, look, someday I'm going to be gone.
Yeah.
I want my kids to have the money long term. I want all the philanthropic things I'm doing to be taken care of. So he spent 15 years studying the markets and figured out, how do I design a portfolio that'll make money every time? Like if it loses money, it lost in 75 years, it's lost 1.6% when it's lost, but it's been right 85% of the time. Wow. If you went to Vegas and you had a plan that worked for 75 years and made money 85% of the time, and when you lost 1.6%, and when you gained more than 10%. The biggest loss in 75 years is 3.95%, less than 4.
Wow.
So why did people not make it in the stock market? Because when you take a 50% hit, they all say stay in. Nobody, the average person never stays in.
Sure.
If you look at the last 20 years, the average person, the stock market over 20 years, from 1993 to 2013, has averaged 9.2%. Pretty cool compounding. You double your money pretty damn quick doing that.
Right.
But the average mutual fund investors make 2.5%. Why? Because they freak out, they sell when it goes down, they buy when it's looking good, it's just the wrong time to buy it. They don't know what to do. So what Ray Dalio's strategy does, and by the way, he's never shared this strategy ever publicly.
And he gives it in here.
He gives it in here, which is mind-boggling. I pushed him, I teased him, I cajoled him. In the end, I said, look, you're not taking any more money, help the average guy out. He lays it out, you can do it yourself or you have someone else do it for you, but it takes 15 minutes a year and 85% success over 75 years. And I can take any time period, the last 30 years. He lost money 4 times. One of those was 0.003%, so it's really breaking even. So, and again, the most he ever lost, less than 4%, average 1.9%. So if you're looking for a plan, I'd put some money there. Then the other money that I would do is I'd take some of that money and I'd look at what are the biggest trends. I have a lot of my money also in senior housing. And the reason is twofold. It's a demographic inevitability. There's this giant wave of baby boomers, and there isn't enough senior housing to take care of them. And I like it. I like to create a quality place for someone to be able to live and take care of and so forth. But there's huge income from it, and there's the growth in the asset itself.
Sure.
So I'd be looking at what are the big trends, but I would make sure I locked down a segment of my money that just, I took a percentage of my income no matter what, and I made it really big, and I made it so I'd never have to work again. And that's where I am now. I don't have to work. And what's ironic is, when you interview people that make at least $750,000 a year, right, just under $1 million, 80% of them say they'll never retire. When you interview people that make a very little amount of money, they all talk about wanting to retire.
Right.
And the people that do retire say they'll retire after 75. Like, Steve Wynn's my buddy, he's 72. Warren Buffett's 84 now.
Still working.
I met with Jack Bogle, who created Vanguard. He's been in the business 63 years.
Wow.
He's 85 years old and such a genius. Sitting down there, he spent 4 hours with me, by the way. He came by for 45 minutes. He wrote in the book here, he goes, Tony Robbins came by for 45 minutes. 4 hours later, I had the most provocative and probing interview of my life, he said. But the guy's still in the game. Because the real goal is not to have to work. If you don't work, you'll go stark raving mad, because we all need to be productive to feel. Very poor background, and we had no money for food at times, quite literally. And it was rough. So I want to make sure money wasn't an issue for my future family. So I figured out how to make money. And I figured when I was, 23, I figured out how to make $1 million in a year. And I went from 38,000 to $1 million. And you don't do that by some new strategy. It was a psychological shift as well as a strategy shift.
Right.
But then I made the same amount of money for 7 straight years, even though I built a dozen more companies. It's not about money, it's like growth. So I went, I want to make $3 million, but I want to make more of it while I sleep. But then I really began to realize it doesn't matter how much money you make. It's really your capacity to take your creativity and stop trading time for money. It's the worst trade in the world. Everybody's a financial trader. Yeah. They don't realize they're a trader. They're trading time, and you can't get more time. So this book is how to take anybody, an average person, a millennial just getting out of college with a bunch of debt and saying, how do I really make this work? Or a baby boomer saying, how do I still retire? And the way I did it was I said, I want to interview 50 of the most brilliant financial people in the world, because most people don't know. Business, what you don't know will hurt you financially. So I want to know how to protect people and how to help people maximize. And that's why I did the book.
It's incredible. And what I want to know is why we weren't taught these things growing up.
Me too. Tell me.
Right? So if they were like, okay, Tony, we're giving you the key to the education system.
Yeah.
And how would you apply, what teachings would you apply into about finances, learning about this, how to generate, it's nuts. Like you lose so much money just on the fees.
Well, just so people have an understanding. 96% of all mutual funds never match the market. I mean, they never beat the market. So I was just on a morning show this morning, and Michael Bloomberg's one of his guys in house some of his money. So I'm, this is the only industry I know of where people think they can be a doctor. They think they can be a financial planner. And I said to him, well, look, the statistics, Warren Buffett taught me this. He said, Ray Dalio told me this. David Swenson, who took Yale from $1 billion to $24 billion in 2 decades. These are people telling me this.
Right.
Nobody beats the market except a couple of unicorns that nobody has access to. And I said, I didn't say you're not one of them, but I said, here's the truth. 96% of mutual funds don't match the market. That means 4% succeed. Now, what are your chances of picking the right mutual fund? People don't know what they're doing. They put their money in a 401k, they pick a mutual fund not knowing what it is. If you play blackjack, and you and I play, and you get 2 face cards, and your inner idiot says, hit me, I want to get 1 chance in a million when you get ace. You have an 8% chance of winning. If you try to get a mutual fund, you got a 4% chance of winning. So what I show people is not only do you not get the result, thinking logically, if I hire someone else to do it, they'll do better than me. But in addition, you pay around 2,000% more than it's worth, meaning you get the same exact product, the same stocks. If you own the index, right, you own a piece of all of America's best companies.
Now, I want to ask you how you personally handle a breakdown, because I've been to your workshop, and incredible experience.
Thank you.
And you teach people how to overcome their fears and how to handle breakdowns, but how do you personally deal with it? And do you even have any breakdowns?
Yeah, they sent me a list of questions you had just to kind of give me, that was one of the questions, and I was like, it's interesting. It's breakdowns, it's certainly not something I experience, but it's not because I'm so talented or so brilliant or so fearless. It's just, you're like an athlete. You're an athlete. Yeah. You're in shape. Yeah. Right? You're not going to have a reaction in your body like somebody who doesn't take care of themselves.
Right.
So, I don't believe in emotional intelligence. I think it's useful, but I'm more interested in emotional fitness, because intelligence is a capability. Fitness is a state of readiness. If you are fit, you can take that demand right now and you can deal with it. You can deal with that physical stress, that emotional stress. Same thing's true with psychological fitness, emotional fitness, right? So I'm pretty fit. And part of that is not because I'm so smart. Part of it is I've taught this for decades. I remember I had a woman who came to one of my seminars in her early 80s probably, and she would run in this room, 10,000 people. I think it was, she went a couple of 10,000 person events, and she would get in this front row and fight her way through there. and she'd jump and go for it. And one break, she came up to me, I was signing a book for her, and she says, she goes, Mr. Robbins, I've seen you at like 8 of these. She goes, I've seen you like when you're really, I know, I can hear your voice, you're hurting or you haven't slept. And she goes, you always seem to be so up all the time. How come you're so up? And I said, well, part of it is I attend all these seminars. So I'm teaching it. So there's a fitness in that. But there's also, I've buried 3 fathers and 1 mother, and that affects your life. I've had a physician look me in the eye and say you have a tumor in your brain. Wow. And so I've had those moments that when you've had extreme stress and you push your way through it, you build psychological muscle. It's like it takes a lot to knock me off. In the early days, we didn't have $50,000 to keep the doors open. How do we do it? Then I had, graduated to $5 million. And I graduated to a partner of mine who kind of didn't do things well, and I ended up owning $100 million because I had to take on his debts. $100 million. But when you do all that stuff, now my companies do $5 billion, a year. So you keep expanding what I would call really the circle of the threshold of your influence. Sure. Everybody has a threshold of control, and if you get beyond it, you kind of freak out. So it takes a little bit more. I don't have. Doesn't happen. I pull them out, and most of it's like you as an athlete. You don't just physically break down. Right. You take care of yourself. So
you're constantly training that.
I think most people don't train their mind and emotions. It's like I think the most powerful muscles to me are not physical, as strong as important as they are. It's like faith is a muscle, courage is a muscle, determination is a muscle, playfulness is a muscle. Passion unexpressed weakens. Faith untested gets smaller. So I'm always, I call it deep practice. I'm always pushing myself to the edge, and pushing yourself to the edge makes you stronger. Yeah. When things are bad, people think it's going to be bad forever. When things are good, they think it's going to be good forever. And they're always wrong. Life's cyclical. So there's a season for everything. So once we got through World War II and a few years later, guess what? Those same stocks made him a billionaire. So when I asked him, I said, what's the secret to wealth? His response when he touched me, he goes, you know it, you teach it. I said, what's that? He said, gratitude. And I said, why do you say that? He said, because if you got $1 billion and every day you live pissed off and frustrated, the quality of your life is called pissed off and frustrated. Right. But if you have nothing, but you're euphorically grateful for whatever you have, you're the richest person that you're going to know. He said, so it doesn't matter how much money you got if you don't have gratitude. So I do the same thing, by the way. I have a process I call it priming, where I get up every morning. I do mine in the morning. I do this radical change to my body, kind of alter my state. And then I do 10 minutes, I never miss, and my first 3.5 minutes is what I'm really grateful for. And I make myself think of at least one of those 3 that's something really simplistic, instead of something giant, the wind on my face, the look in one of my kids' eyes, something of that nature. And then I do 3 minutes of strength and healing, and I do 3 minutes of when I'm going to create my world, and I do that for a minimum. But they cut it by 8.7 billion, which means you eliminate 2 million people from the rolls overnight, and they still need to eat. Wow. So I support all these nonprofit organizations, and Feeding America is the largest in the country. And so I thought, I want to call attention to this. So if I donated all the profits of this book in advance, how many people could I feed? Because I normally feed 2 million through my foundation, and I match it. So I feed 4 million a year. And they said you could feed 10 million people. I was like, wow. I'm in. Wow. and then as the years gone by, I've gotten more and more inspired. And so now I'm going to feed 50 million people personally, not just from the book. I'm writing a larger check on top of it. But also, I'm working with Feeding America to get matching funds to feed 100 million people.
Incredible.
So to go from my family not being able to eat to feeding 100 million people is a pretty amazing sense of gratitude and a sense of grace. And I've done my part, but there's been grace in that as well.
It's amazing. It's incredible what you're doing and very inspiring. So thank you for doing that.
So anybody gets the book,
you're feeding
I'm not getting any prominence for you. But it also feed on average 50 families every month.
100% is being
donated. 100%. No, you can only do it because the financial industry makes things so opaque, so convoluted, and people feel overwhelmed.
And hard to understand.
Very hard to understand. That's why I try to come in here and go, look, time to become the chess player, not the chess piece. Let me teach you so you understand what's going on. It's not that complex. They use all these big words, but when you know what's going on, you don't get screwed, and more importantly, you take advantage of the system instead of letting the system take more
than that. Yes. That's amazing. Now, I think I also read in the book, I don't know if you said this or someone else said this, but the key to living is giving.
Yes.
Now, I think I might have heard you say this actually back when I first saw you when I was 16 at an event. And I remember thinking, I don't have anything to give. I don't have any money. How am I supposed to invest my money? 10, 20% every month. And then how can I give on top of that? But I really understood that, it's so valuable and important to give. And I work with a lot of nonprofits myself, building schools for kids around the world. That's wonderful. And I've seen a big impact in my life, in the way I'm able to serve people.
Sir John Templeton told me that he's never seen anyone tithe, which tithing is usually 10% of what you earn, for at least a decade who didn't become incredibly financially free.
Wow.
And I think the reason is, I had a moment like when my whole life changed. It was kind of twofold. I was really young, like yourself back then, right? Working my tail off, trying to build a business. I mean, you have big goals, you don't always succeed to start with. It doesn't just come together, right? It was hard. And I remember I was so frustrated because I was working 18-hour days and nothing was working, and I was broke, and I felt embarrassed, I should be doing better than this.
Sure.
And so I was driving home from Orange County on the 57th freeway in San Gabriel Valley out near a place in Pomona, California. It probably doesn't matter anybody else, but I remember it so vividly because it was almost midnight. And I was at this breaking point. And then I was like, why am I not, doing better? And then I just pulled over the road, and I used to keep these journals. I still have them, written journals. And I wrote in big lines, the secret to living is giving. And I started to cry. And I realized I am so focused on what am I not getting.
Receiving.
I'm not focusing on what I'm giving.
Yeah.
So for 6 months, man, it turned me around. But then, something else to get in your body. It was in my head, it was in my heart, but it had to get in there to stay. Something's really simple, and I tell people now, as I say, number one, every single day, you got to feed and strengthen your mind. Until you do that, you're always going to be in fear. Because fear is automatic. The human brain is designed for survival. It's not designed for success. Your brain is not designed to make you happy. That's your job. Right. And the only way you're going to do it is if you feed your mind, because otherwise, weeds grow automatically. My coach, my mentor, Jim Rohn, used to tell me, so Tony, every day you got to stand guard at the door of your mind. You got to watch what's going in, because if you're not careful, stuff will go in. And he said, all the times it's somebody who cares about you. He said, if your
family,
if your worst enemy puts sugar in your coffee, he said, what happens? I said, you got sweet coffee. He goes, what if your best friend by accident or your family don't mean to? They drop one drop of strychnine in your coffee, you're dead. He said, so life's sugar and strychnine and watch your coffee, right?
Right.
So every day I decided, I'm old enough, honestly, there was no internet those days. I'm pretty ancient. I used to go to the library because it's the only place you go. And I'd read biographies, I'd read people's lives, and it'd make me go, wait a second, as bad as I think it is, the greatest people in the world had it worse.
Sure.
So there's something here. So you feed your mind. Jim Rohn used to say to me, skip a meal, but don't skip reading. He said, read 30 minutes a day. I don't give a damn what it is. And today, I don't mean internet crap. I mean, read something, a biography, read something that's a strategy, read something that's going to change your life. And the second thing I tell people is feeding your mind's great, but you've got to also strengthen your body. And you do that as an athlete naturally. I learned to do that because fear is physical, right? You know where you feel it. And if you go work out, if you go lift, if you go run, even if you're out of shape, you just go for an intense walk, that experience alone changes you. Like every day of my life, the first thing I do before I do my priming, if I'm at one of my homes, I jump in some hot water for fun, and then I jump in freezing water. And I have, a river, in one of my homes in Sun Valley, and I've got cold plunges everywhere else. So I go in 57-degree water, boom. And what it does is it's teaching my brain, I tell my brain what to do, and it does it. It doesn't feel like it, doesn't want to do it, and every cell in your body is alive, right? So it doesn't have to be 2 hours worth of something. It can be something you do for 30 seconds, but it's training your body to be strong, because a strong body creates a strong mind and vice versa.
Yeah.
The third thing I tell people is find a role model.
Small you've done. An example was you giving money to, that child. It was a great example of that. But is there something recently you've done that's so small that you're really proud of?
A lot of people don't think proud is a good term. I think it actually is. Ego is edging God out. That's when you make shit up to make yourself feel good. But I think if you've really done something, you have, and no one can take that from you. And so I'm proud of who I am as a man. I'm proud of the things that, what goes on when the camera's not on. And there are people around me all the time that will tell other people stories about what I'm really like. So I don't have to communicate that to people. It gets shared. So I don't know. I don't know if there's
a couple questions left for you.
Sure.
One of them is, what's your definition of greatness?
I don't know. I think everyone has greatness. I don't like that separation. I respect it because in sports, I think it's really easy to measure. But sports is one aspect of life. I think everyone has the opportunity to be great. To me, being great is being outstanding, to stand out from all the rest. And as you know, in sports, it can be by, a few microseconds, right? In the Olympics, it can be a nose hair and you stand out. If you stand out, you show other people what's possible. Not everybody likes that. Some people get angry and think you're showing them up. Other people get inspired. I've always been inspired by somebody who's the best in the world at what they do. And so I think greatness is somebody who just will not settle and finds a way to do, be, share, and create in life what they want, as opposed to fitting in. I think most people are trying to not be rejected. I wrote in this book, I took a a quote from Aristotle saying, how do you really live your life? Well, if you don't want to upset anybody, it's really simple. Don't do anything, don't say anything, don't be anything, and everybody will like you. You know? But if you want to have a quality life, I think you just have to put yourself on the line. And so to me, greatness is people that put themselves on the line, they keep growing, they won't settle.
So what's next for you? What are you still up to? I mean, why are you going after inspiring 100 million people, feeding 100 million people? What's next?
Why not? Right? It's like, what else are you going to do with your life? I look at, there are lots of challenges. I mean, this is a problem I wanted to go after. It's a problem because people are being abused by a system that nobody means to abuse it. It's just, it's not an evil system. It's just, you have large corporations that are set up to make a profit, and that's their job. They're not set up to make you as an investor more profitable. So they take care of their shareholder first. So they get all the fees they can. They manipulate the system. So I want to give people freedom. To me that's valuable. But what I do with my life is I look at what I see that moves me. I mean, I always tell people ask me about speaking, they say, how do you be an effective speaker? I said, don't speak about shit you're not passionate about. And that you don't have a true edge where you can help somebody. If you can add massive value and you're passionate about it, then talk about it. Otherwise, shut the what up. That's my view. So when I find things that I'm very passionate about, I like to go deep. I think we live in a Facebook world, a Twitter world, a tweeting world, texting world, where people are, by technology, not realizing they're becoming more and more shallow. I mean, there are people ending relationships by texting now. It's like, are you kidding me? They go, why is the person upset? I can understand. Did you see this? I texted you. And I look at them going, are you kidding? But technology is making us think that our Facebook friends are our friends. I mean, give me a break. There's only a few friends you can go deep with. You can't have 10,000 friends and go deep. And I think a lot of people are dissatisfied because technology is making us go faster and faster. So I look for things to go deep in. And I think in our lives, there's a few areas that matter. Your body, your emotions, your spirit, your relationships, your economics, your business. Those half dozen or so areas I like going deep in. And I'm going to keep doing massive action and constantly change your approach. And then it's find somebody worse off than you are and help them. Because when you do that, it gets you out of yourself. And that's what I really have people do. That's what we do at Thanksgiving. We have our basket brigade where 2 million people get fed.
Amazing.
Not the one I do, the one that I get people to do. And it's amazing. People go in there and they see, my God, I thought my life was tough, but look at this person's life. It makes you appreciative. It puts life in perspective.